Hello everyone. I'm Lee Lewis, the Artistic Director here at Queensland Theatre, and it is my very great pleasure to gather everybody together for a subscriber briefing. It's still so exciting for me that we can do this. The fact that we can do this on Yagara and Turrbal land is a little bit of a promise that stories have been told on these lands for tens of thousands of years, so it means we will continue to tell stories for tens of thousands of years despite the current circumstances. So celebrating the very great fortune we have to be here tonight. Welcome to the subscriber briefing for the Almighty Sometimes. Woohoo! Now, you'll notice that normally it would be the man with the high hair in the yellow checked top that would be kicking us off, but he's directing tonight. That is, of course, the fabulous Dan Evans. And he's always far better prepared for these things than I am. So I said to him, I'm just going to wing it. And he looked at me and went, oh, okay. And I'm allowed to do that because that's one of the privileges of running the company. I just get to make things up as I go along. But what I'm not making up is the extraordinary nature of this play. Almighty Sometimes won the Bruntwood Prize for Playwriting in 2015. The Bruntwood is an enormous playwriting prize in England. And it's open to anyone who holds an English passport, British passport, which of course Kendall Fever does. One of her parents was English originally, and so she had one of those grandfathered passports. So she took herself off as a young playwright over to England to study, and knew about this prize and submitted the work. Now, a little bit of goss around the prize. I believe that when they were judging the prize, there were over 1,000 plays entered. And as this play was getting further and further up, the jury apparently put the judging on hold because the person who was heading up the jury didn't believe it could have been written by a British person. But of course, she was legally British. But it was an interesting thing, that voice that was coming out of there. I would maintain what that jury was picking up is the distinctive nature of Kendall's very Australian voice. So they weren't wrong, but I love the fact that it still won. That they stopped the judging and just check and make sure that this person is eligible. And that I understand that process because when you start to love a play, you want it to win. And you don't want anything to get in the way. You don't want to get to the end and go, this is the one, and have them go, oh, sorry, they're not actually eligible, they lied. So they checked in on Kendall. She was absolutely eligible, and she won this huge playwriting prize, which came, the company that runs it is the Royal Exchange. And they went on to produce her work in 2018, and in the same year we did a production of it at Griffin Theatre Company down south. So, full disclaimer, I did direct that, which has put an enormous amount of pressure on Dan. But it's actually been, I want to say publicly, we would never be doing this play, which I love greatly, were Dan Evans not happy to direct it. Look, when you love a play and you direct a play, you get very protective of it because it's like a member of your family, the story, in a funny way. And I knew I didn't want to direct it again. It's a difficult play to do on the heart level. So when Dan and I started talking, he started talking about the kinds of writing that he loves. I thought, my little heart went, ooh, maybe there's a fellow lover of Kendall Fever's writing. And when he read it, he went, oh, I would love to do this play. So let's start with that, Dan. Oh, actually, before, terribly rude, everybody's got to introduce themselves first before Dan and I get carried away, so that you know who you're talking to tonight. So, name and your role in the production. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Wilmot, and I'm on board as sound designer and composer.
Hello, I am Dan. I am directing.
Hi, I'm Melissa Kahraman. I play Anna.
Hello, my name's Rachel Gordon and I'm playing Renee.
Hi, I'm Will Bartolo. I'm playing Oliver.
Hello, I'm Louisa Prosser. I'm playing Vivian.
Hello, I'm Ben Hughes. I'm the lighting designer.
I'm Simone Romanyuk. I'm the set and costume designer.
And this is the fabulous team. Woohoo! So after the gorgeous scale of the Sunshine Club, we're coming back into the Bill Brown for this beautiful story about 4 people. There's Anna, our young woman who is just turning 18. her mother, Renee, and that's Rachel. And essentially, between the two of them, that's the heart of the story, is a relationship between a mother and a daughter and getting older and wanting independence and loving and letting go of your child. Sitting next to Renee is Will, who is playing Oliver, who is Anna's boyfriend. And then sitting next to, it doesn't necessarily start, spoilers, you see, this is why I'm terrible at this, I can't give away the whole story. But then sitting next to Will is Louisa, and she's playing Vivian, who is Anna's psychiatrist. Because in the scheme of the story, it's the navigation of mental health in a family as well. So that's the subject matter of the night. But really, it's the gorgeous relationship between a mother and a daughter that first drew me to the play. What about you, Dan? This play, what was your first encounter with it?
Someone had foolishly left it on a desk in QT, and I was upstairs, and I went, can I borrow this? Actually, I don't think I even asked permission. I think I just took it. And I went home and I read it, and I came back and I said, what's happening with this play? And they're like, I think Lee's considering it for next year. And I think Lee was away directing something down south at the time. And I think I recall going into Amanda Jolie's office and going, who is directing this? I would like to direct it. And she was like, okay, your concern is important to us. We'll take it up with the programming team in the right channels. And the reason why, I remember reading this play, and the mother and the daughter, and in fact all the female characters felt so immediately present to me. I've grown up with my mum and my sister, who are in a very close relationship, and I saw them both refracted in this beautiful script. And it just flew off the page, and I think everyone on this stage can attest to the fact that when you read it, you just keep turning the page. It's a real bullet train of a work, and it asks a lot of the audience. Actually, it asks you to just jump on board and stand by for the ride of your life, I guess. And I think the power of the script and what everyone felt, I felt when I closed the last page, which I hope to bring to you, is that when we leave these people's lives, we hope everything's going to be okay. It's quite a hopeful ending, but we do worry about them. We worry about these two. And that worry kind of sunk under my skin. And I think it's a really good sign as a director when you read something and you walk away and you can't forget it. It's still, these characters are still swirling in the consciousness. And I think that's what you look for in a play. I read so many plays, and this one I worried. And I loved that. I loved that they were still in my orbit months afterwards, and now I'm working in a room with these amazing actors bringing them to life. So that's kind of what drew me to it. And I'm so thankful. He was like, I got the call going, would you like to direct this? I'm like, just a moment. yeah, that sounds fantastic. Yeah. Let me just check my diary. Yeah, great. Great. September, August, it's great for me.
I don't know about you, Dan, but as a director, I find that when I'm working on dramas, there's a lot of laughter in the room, and when I'm working on comedies, no one laughs about anything.
No.
Has that been your experience?
Comedy feels very it's like an autopsy, because you're going, no, you need to fall over the banana peel there, fall into the buckets, and then slam your head against the wall, and you're a microsecond off, and everyone's like, copy that. And then you do, and also you just stop laughing in a comedy. Whereas I think in this, we find that this play has some darkness, and it's kind of, it asks its audience to be a bit brave and to go on the journey with these two incredible people. And I think the room has been full of joy, but there's also much joy and lightness in the script. And I think that's true of anyone who's going through anything. In the darkest of hours, there is always a sliver of light, and in this room, we really held on to the light as much as possible. And it's been such a joyous, very, very funny room to be in, and it's been a joy to come to work it hasn't felt like work, to come to play with these people every single day. And I think that's what's kept us all sane. I think you have to have a level of humour to work on a story like this, and to show reverence and respect when we need to, but also to know at the end of the day, we'll laugh and we'll breathe it all out before we go home, which has been wonderful. Yeah, it's very affirming. Like, I think we've all kind of had this process coming through this play of going, I was like, I've got to call mum. Every day I'm like, I've got to call mum. And then I find myself holding on to people, like, for longer than necessary. Like, are you okay? Great. Everyone's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm directing a play. So it's been quite wonderful.
Now, this is an interesting one. It's actually quite a radical little play. It doesn't seem like it when you're watching it, but what's radical is what sits at the heart is not one hero. This is not a hero's journey play. And Kendall is part of the generation that is writing towards other ways of telling stories. And what she has is I would call, and I don't think it's a technical word, but a double protagonist play. It's a daughter and a mother, and both of the stories work side by side. So I don't know which one to start with. You know, on paper, I would start with you, Mel, insofar as encountering Anna. She's quite an epic little character that Kendall has written, a coming-of-age story like we haven't seen on the stage before, really. When you first read it, what drew you towards Anna?
I came across this play as a first-year drama student. I remember going through the school library looking for Australian plays because I remember thinking, I don't have any under my belt, so I'll have a look what we've got. And then Kendall's play was just sitting there in the Australian literature section. And so I remember picking it up thinking, okay, when I read the little blurb on the back going, all right, strap in, it's going to be a hard-hitting look at mental health and mental illness. I'm probably gonna hate it, but I'll read it anyway. That's just how I approach work. I think I'm going to hate something, and then I'm pleasantly surprised. But I remember from, I think it was like 1 or 2 pages in, I just remember being really shocked because I was laughing straight away. And I think that's what kept me turning the pages because, yes, it deals with some heavy themes, but I couldn't stop laughing, and I was laughing out loud, being shushed by Ross the librarian. But I was laughing so much because I found so much heart and warmth and love in these characters, particularly between Renee and Anna, because the way that we reference Lady Bird a lot, the film Lady Bird, because the relationship between mother and daughter there is very similar to what we're trying to establish and play with. So, and I couldn't stop thinking about my relationship with my mother and my sister, and I like Dan, I really worried about these people after I finished reading it. I remember thinking, I hope they're okay. And then I marched down to the head of acting's office and I said, I know, we both marched. But I just felt like I needed to play Anna. But I remember taking the play and I marched down to the head of acting's office and I said, we must put this play on in 3rd year. I must play Anna. And he was like, please get out. Please get out, you have no say. Cut to hello, QT debut. But it's a massive role. It's much more muscular than I think I ever really imagined it being. But it's so, as we're learning, it's so necessary to be front-footed on this with this play. Otherwise, it like Dan said, it is a bit of a bullet train. It can get away from underneath you. So it's been really lovely trying to find those layers and play with Anna. I've really fallen in love with her. Back off. I love her.
Yeah. And you, Rachel, this is not what I would call typical in the tradition of presentation of mothers on stage.
No. I think what I experienced when I first read this script, and I had a very unusual response to it. Like, it's rare that I actually read a script at home in my lounge room and start crying or laughing out loud. Like, I had a really visceral response to it, and I think that's testament to Kendall's writing. It's just so beautifully observed. And as a mother myself, it was just so emotionally charged. Like, I was imagining what it would be like to be a single mum with no one else there, looking after a daughter who had, extra sensitivities. And, the way that Renee talks about Anna when she's well is she's dazzling. And you'll see with Beautiful Mel's performance that she is, when she's well, she's extraordinary. It's like she lights up the sky. But then, the flip side of that, the brighter the light, the darker the shadow, she's incredibly dark when she's dark. And so as a mother, as anybody in the audience who has kids, that it's like having a heart outside you when you have children, you know, like everything they experience, you experience as well, if not more so. And so just that I had kind of like this primal response when I was reading it of wanting to protect her and support her and love her and celebrate, like when she gets a boyfriend, and the devastation when things go wrong, or spoiler alert, sorry, everything's fine, guys. Everything's fine. They're married now. But yeah, just how beautiful, you know, and gutsy it is. Like, it's messy and complicated and true and brave and courageous. And the really gorgeous thing, we had this moment in rehearsals today. We were doing one of the scenes where Anna's quite depressed, and Mel and I were kind of lying on the floor and, you know, working through that. And at one moment, Mel goes, "Oh my God, your nails look fabulous." I was like, "Yeah, they do, don't they? It's a great colour." And then we went back into the scene. And
I am incredibly professional.
Incredibly
just FYI.
professional. But that's kind of the nature of the relationship with a mother-daughter. You can be brutal with each other and know that, like, I'm not going anywhere. So there's that really safe container for us to kind of explore everything, which is such a privilege as an actor in any kind of relationship on stage, to know that neither of them are going anywhere. So we kind of do some things together. Yeah, I don't know if that answered your question.
Oh, no, I'm just always fascinated by, especially when, look, it seems like comedies are great fun to do on the outside, but when you look at it, you go, who would want to get into the worlds of these people? Because dramas will always contain our greatest hopes and our greatest fears. And when it comes to playing those things, like you're talking about being a mum and the fears that you have for your kids, and you kind of go, to enact that, there's something strange and beautiful inside actors that want to go towards the representation of these things, but it's usually something compelling them in the writing. And I'm always fascinated by works that are easy to get actors to do, where you just really send it out to the first person you want and they go, yes. You go, oh, it's a first indication of there's something compelling inside the works. There's an instinct inside actors that will tell you that it's playable. Because if it's not playable and if they don't want to play it, those plays genuinely don't happen. But when it happens really easily, it's kind of fascinating. And it was the conversations with Dan about, be careful who you offer it to, they will say yes. Yeah, no, it's true. So there is that true. So we had a lot of conversations about, okay, who was find Anna, find Oliver. And then we got through that. We got that combination, and then he was like, "Oh my God, it gets even harder finding Mum, and then finding Vivian. How do you add to that?" So it's an interesting build of a small play, but that thing of what's inside the writing. Will, what was inside the writing for you?
Well, I read it and I was like, well, this is one of the best plays I've ever read. And I think specifically what sort of struck me was it kept surprising me. It surprised me in like where the plot went. I could never quite tell where it was going, and it always surprised me. And it sort of, as you were both saying, I just read it in one sitting. And then it also surprised me in like the drawings of the characters themselves, because I feel like so often you can look at a script and you can be like, oh, that's the quirky guy, that's the silly guy, that's the player. But I feel like, at least with Oliver, and I think with everyone, at one point I was like, oh, he's doing that now, and then I'm like, oh no, he's doing this completely contrary thing. They're like such three-dimensional human beings, and as Dan was saying, so I feel like that really drew me towards it, and sort of the ability to honour that and try and make these people that live on past your viewing of the play is sort of the thing that really hit me.
So we've got some words, beautiful words that start to come out of them as we struggle to describe, because it's one thing for us to say the writing is great. What does that mean? And I always talk about Kendall being so beautifully literate that you can't see her education. She's got this extraordinary capacity, but you're not feeling years of study sitting on the page. You're just feeling humans. I love that word gutsy that you used. That thing, when I say literate, that's just me kind of knowing something. The gutsy is what's so fascinating. The messiness that she can write the humans with, because what makes them feel like humans is how messy they are. But then into this messy human world, she puts Vivian, who's got this clinical mind. She's playing a psychiatrist to this young woman over the course of her life and to the family that goes with her. So you've probably got there's always that moment as an actor, isn't it, where you've got to play the doctor. And so you've actually got to pretend to an education you don't have at all. And we see it on TV. I mean, Australia's got a beautiful affection for hospital dramas, and that just means we've got generations of actors that can talk about internals really well. So have you ever played a psychiatrist before?
I have played a criminal psychiatrist, actually. Yeah, I have. I've forgotten about that once. But I found the character, Vivian's character, fascinating, and I have learned so much about psychiatry, and we have had a lovely. Are we able to say that we've had a psychiatrist to come in and observe and tell me everything that I'm doing wrong? No. Yeah, and when I read the play, just like everyone else, it really was a page turner. And I said this in my audition. I need to read a play about 3 or 4 times before I can really be, fully across everything. But I just did it in one sitting, and everything resonated. Everybody's character made so much sense. And I was almost found myself not taking sides, but but this really is the right path, and it's complex as is the human mind, and fascinating. And I love the relationship that Vivian has with Anna. She's seen her for quite a few years. Are we allowed to, I don't know what we're allowed to say yet. Yes. And it's and I love the way it's written, and I resonated with the humour that she brings to the relationships. So, yeah.
It's interesting as you're talking about having someone in the room as an observer, and in the history of this play, there's been a lot of support from psychiatrists and child psychologists in the mental health space, talking about how there are no right decisions. And that diagnosis is very difficult, and that often you're treating symptoms, and over a period of time with that person, maybe you come towards a diagnosis. And it's interesting to me, one of the things that's significant about Kendall as a writer is that, yes, she's indicated that she's got a certain amount of lived experience in this space, but what I've found with her as a writer over time is that the depth of her research is enormous. Because as a writer, what she enjoys is putting forward stories where there is no right side, and there might not be a satisfying closure on an idea, but usually because those ideas are so complex, you tell me where the end point is of the story. But the interesting thing for me in this play is that there is no hero and there are no right sides. So talk to me a little bit about that, Dan, insofar as how you've worked on maintaining these 4 different voices, all of whom have very strong arguments to make.
Oh my gosh.
And who sometimes change their own minds about what they're thinking.
Oh my gosh, everyone. This was I reckon one of the hardest parts of directing this is that what Kendall's done is... look, a big learning for me in this whole process is... And I was talking to Dr. Alexandra Evans, who was our consulting psychiatrist on this, and I went and met with her, and lovely. But she was said to me, Dan, you're asking for definitives, and in this space of psychiatry, mental health, mental illness, there are very few definitives. And I was like, but I would like to know the answer. And she's like, well, the point is there is no answer. I'm like, And Vivian at one point in the play does say, I wish I could point to a part of an X-ray in a brain and tell you what's wrong, but that's just not how this is going to work. And the frustration and the intangibility of that was just so lodged in my chest. Actually, I found that really, really moving. And I think that's what Kendall does, is that she will divide you, and you will go out in intermission, and you'll have to have an opinion. You will argue with someone. So be careful who you bring. But it will divide you, because she does pit people she pits ideas against ideas and people against people. And so to the idea of this being difficult to direct, having to be like, say to, Mel, now look, this is what's going on. This is your authentic truth. You need to rally for this. And then you're like, fantastic, Mel. And you push Mel away and go, no, Rachel, everything I just said, that's completely incorrect. You need to rally for your authentic truth, okay? And then you push Rachel away, Will, come over here. Okay, they're both wrong. You're right. So it's like, it's this idea that all of these actors have to hold on to their truth because their truths are different and they are opposing. But none of them are wrong or incorrect. And that is life. And that is what I have learned. And also by the end, I think you realise that there are no sides. There is no right nor wrong. And it's in that glorious, sublime, terrifying grey that these people are left. And that is both hopeful and heartbreaking. And I think that's where the heaviness or the unrest comes from at the end, because you go, I'm not sure that they're entering back into the world okay, not okay, and that's what I love about it. It's unresolved. It has the bravery to be unresolved, and that's gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. But Simone, you have a director come to you and say, so it's really grey. And of course you have your own read on the play, but to create a container for a complex work between 4 characters in the Bill Brown, where did you start?
There were several starting points.
And given that you've just been in here with the incredibly velvet and lush Bernhard Hamlet.
Yes, it's pretty much the opposite set to Bernhard Hamlet. It's black and white for a start. Dan had a few different things that he wanted to explore that he sort of talked about as starting points. One was, the contemporary nature, the space that they live in. There's a domesticity about, the everyday things that the family does. So looking at that, he also was talking a lot about the blank page. There's a lot of writing and the blank page of stories, Vivian's writings, and then also Anna's own mind and what comes out of that. And then there's also an intensity between mother and daughter, but in between all the characters. So there's in the set, which you can see some of it above and behind, and where we're sitting now, there'll be a white platform reflecting this white light box above. So I also want to create an intensity that they're floating in this white space with these black walls around, and really focus on everything that happens between the characters. So it's sort of drawing those different elements together and having then a few little surprises as well, because otherwise it wouldn't be a Dan Evans play.
There's a certain amount of expectation, Dan, around your... I think people might be a little bit shocked by the black and white of you.
I know. Just you wait. Oh, don't judge a book by its cover. Stand by.
So, Mike, I'm going to jump to you now with a little bit of a question about a work that has such a psychological landscape, and also an encounter with a playwright who's of a generation that takes complex sound design for granted. What has this one asked of you, and where did you start?
Oh, great question. For me, this all started with an email from Dan with an accompanying playlist and the script of about 150 songs.
It's a big playlist.
It was a big, but it was also a fantastic playlist, because part of what makes this so, the writing in this so real and the dialogue between these characters so real, for myself as a sound designer, I always start with a track to them and their lives and where they come from and what they listen to. And so it was instantly leaping off the page to me, listening to this playlist and reading the script, and using that as a basis for approaching this work of going, it has to be real. It has to be set in the world of these characters, and they hear this stuff on stage a lot of the time, so that you are experiencing these moments as they are experiencing these moments, because that makes it all the more real for you and brings up those questions and the uncomfortabilities we may have in life and moments we've seen and experienced with our own family members or similar around a kitchen table, listening to something on the radio when something very intense is happening before your eyes. And it comes out of the silences and the pauses that sit and let the sound sort of swell around it. And then on the other side of that too, we can track this internal emotional journey of these characters, in particular Anna, through it. And so we get to experience for a second, hopefully, and remember what it felt like to be 18 and sharing a kiss with a partner and have that magic and live in that space, and for a moment as the audience kind of experience it from their perspective. And then over the course of the play, go along with them to the low places as well. So it's been a really delightful ride, I would say, having Dan at the wheel so far for this and, you know, telling me everything that's going well and not.
Same.
Yeah. But it's been a joy because it all comes back to Kendall's writing, which is just, you can't put it down because it's so real. And you read it and you can put yourself in many of those situations with family members and go, oh, I've lived parts of this and this is so good. I can't not be involved in it.
It's an interesting thing. There are we write a lot of new Australian plays, which is a great thing, but there are not a lot of plays that get second productions. And that's one of the biggest complaints from Australian playwrights, is the fact that there's so much emphasis on the new and the world premiere, and we've got caught up in our idea of new too much, and that we don't go back to some of our really good plays. Now, Ben, you sit in a lot of new and Australian play making space. Mike's been so incredibly articulate about what he's bringing to the show. What are you doing with this one?
Well, I think for me, one of the big things upon reading the script was just imagining the highs and the lows of what these characters go through, and how light might be able to help with showing that or making us feel that. And playing, I think, with extremes beyond what you might normally do in a play. Really deep black, like actually going to extreme black for moments in time, and having extreme moments of light and colour and feeling that we might have. So I think for me, that sort of playing with that is something that this play allows for, and hopefully it will help the journey along, and be able to maybe give a little bit of an insight into where the mind's going, and hopefully that lines up with what Mike's doing as well, and it all sort of will gel together and become a thing.
It's that funny moment, isn't it? We're sitting here, they're about to, I think, Mike, you've got a bit of time in here to hear some sound tonight. The set's coming in, the actors are sitting in here going, actually, they're half listening to my questions, but they're mostly looking out at you going, oh, right, this is the shape of the space, this is what we're going to be doing. We're just in that beautiful moment before we've actually got to make the play. That all the love is there, some of the difficulties are there, and then this week is like, I don't know, making a little bit of an omelette. You can just crack the eggs in the space and like smush the egg all together, and by Saturday there'll be a preview. But it's still quite unknown how all of the elements come together. So the only thing that's really holding them together, again, is the love of those words. And I think that's what's exciting sitting on the outside of it. Dan, what do you hope the experience of this will feel like for the audience? And everybody else, you're going to give one word. If you had to actually... No, you can have more than one. But that's because you're the director and a friend. Yes. I'm going to torture you. You're going to get to enjoy the faces of everybody else coming up with their one word that they want people to go home with. Because we've talked about, Dan, you and I have talked about some plays you program. The most important thing about it is the conversation in the car on the way home. Yeah. That's what the play is working to do, is provoke an extraordinary conversation that people wouldn't otherwise have, and to give them material to have that conversation with that they wouldn't have thought of themselves. So it's all about the conversation in the car home. So you can't use those words. What do you want?
Okay.
What do you want for your audience?
Oh, what I want... Okay, I'm going to say two things. I'm going to make them brief. I think this play arrives in a season that wasn't supposed to roll out like this because floods, disease. But where it has found itself in the season is kind of beautiful. It's right. We've had Bernard Hamlet. We have had the Sunshine Club. And now we have our play, and then Othello will follow this. And those works, they're big, and they are... beautiful and sumptuous, and I love that our play arrives and it's about a mother and a daughter who you might live beside or who you might know. And I love that we are taking the time in our year to spend a couple of hours with people who are not Sarah Bernhardt, and they aren't, it's not a big musical, and it's not Shakespearean, but they are no less worthy of this space. And in fact, I love that we're telling their story in this space and giving them this platform. And I hope that, lots of mums, lots of daughters, lots of dads too, and brothers and sons will all come along and watch this and see themselves in some way in it. And I would love if, as the lights come up, I'd love you to hold the person next to you, or to ring your mum, or to tell, or do what I have been doing, which is like just making sure everyone's there, because coming from where we've come from, all of us, well done, you made it. You made it to 2022. Congratulations. And this play is very affirming, and it's about love, and it's about when the going gets tough, what gets you through, and where do you find the resource to keep going. And usually, more often than not, it's in one another. And I think that's what the play holds space for and pays homage to. And in that way, you'll leave, I hope, with a little tear in your eye, a little spring in your step, but also definitely a robust conversation on the way home, but also a softer heart, perhaps. And that's never a bad thing.
Okay, Mike, we're starting with you. What do you want for your audience?
Oh, after that, okay. The message I would love the audience to walk away with is that we are all human, and we're messy, and we're complex, and we're grey, and that is okay. And it's really important to acknowledge that, especially in this year in 2022. And I have to second Dan. I just really hope you just hold and hug someone close to you. And I think give yourself a bit of time to have the conversation. The best moment for me would be ending it with a breath out and I just need a bit into a microphone. There you go. And
That feels good.
and just a bit of a I need to chat about this a bit later, but for now, can I just hold your hand? That would be my outcome.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, okay, I'll follow that. All right. One word. I got so invested, I stopped thinking. Hope. I think hope.
I'm glad I'm near the front, because I think Will and I have the same word. Because when Dan said it, I think we all have the same word. Well, love. It's just, and yeah, I can't think of any other word. It just comes out of every character. Like, they just love each other so much through really difficult circumstances. Yeah, you can say the same word if you want.
No, it's all right. It's fine. I think embrace. I don't know what that means, but just that word.
You feel your hearts. That's heart.
I had a slightly different one. I actually had the word consent. And I think when you see the play, you'll see a lot of how it talks about what is consent between parent and child. And for me, that's a really interesting thing. I've had about 5 discussions with people about that already for hours, and they haven't seen the play yet. So,
I think gratitude in terms of the love and hope and the relationship and connection. So, yes, that's mine.
I'm just really moved by that. Again, I feel really lucky in my job to be able to get really smart people together to work on really great writing and offer that to an audience. So if I had to choose one word, it'd be the writing. Because that's what's gathered all of these people. It's what's convinced them to dive into the darkness and the light of this one. But yeah, maybe I have to go back to writing. But I like consent. Okay, so some questions from all of you, insofar as what questions you might have about the play or for these particular artists. There we go.
You sort of stole my question with that piece, but I'm still going to ask it anyway because I think there's more to say. Is now a really good time to have this play? It was written a long time ago. So is now a really good time to have this play? And then I have another question for Dan.
Okay, is now a good time for the play?
Do you want to speak to that?
Oh, I'd jump in on... Well, if I didn't think it was, I wouldn't have programmed it. So that's always the programming gamble. Why now? Because I think the harder the world has got in the last couple of years, the better the writing has to be to bring us to the theatre. And we're absolutely ready to actually have some big, tough questions. I think when she wrote it, we weren't necessarily ready for the conversation. But now I think what's been revealed to us in the last couple of years is if we don't have the big conversations, the world will slip away from us. So I think we're more ready for it now than when she wrote it. And maybe that's what happens with writers. They write a little bit ahead of where we want to be. But it feels like we're absolutely ready for this conversation.
So Dan, the other question for you is, there's a number of things you've done along the way to get to here. What are the key things that have got you to be ready to do this one?
The question was, what are the key things Dan has done to get him ready to do this play? What got him here?
Well, it does feel like the Olympics, this one. It feels like I'm directing some sort of Olympic sport, asking what this play asks and what I'm asking these actors to do is intense. And it's nothing short of like, if you could just pole vault over that thing and then run a couple of laps around there, jump in the pool, and just go up, climb the high dive and do a triple mount, dismount, and no splash. Thank you so much. Because it's that technical. It's such a technical show. And of course, then the process of the last 2 weeks has been, and hide all of that, hide all of the work. But I think the things that I've done, I've done a lot of big shows recently, like big ones, casts of like 10 to 15. And to come into a cast of 4, I was like, this'll be a breeze. And then after day 1, I was like, oh no. Because I didn't think I realised how much it would cost me to explore the topography of this one, because it's quite intense and I want to get it right. And I have a responsibility to people who are going through this and who are Renee's and who are Anna's, and I want to make sure that they absolutely feel themselves inside of this work. So I guess the works that I've done to date, if I could put them all together, what I have learnt through big casts, through small casts, through working with very young people, through working with dogs last year on stage, why not? Is that theatre is an empathy machine. It's about when you all sit here and we all watch a show together, we just create loads of empathy. And I guess what's been useful is how do you create the conditions for empathy, not just for you in here, but also for the room, to make sure that all of these people feel very safe and ready to go to the places that I've asked them to go to. So our room is very joyful and light, but I take empathy and the conditions by which we have to work to create that empathy very seriously. So, yeah. Plus, also, I love a banging soundtrack, so lots of listening to Fleetwood Mac in the last 6 months or so. Stevie Nicks, forever.
Okay, so the question is, what has been the most difficult part of the play for you? And it's a question for each of the actors.
I think for me, it's knowing Anna's arc, knowing where she starts and where she ends, charting that for me. To do it in a way that feels truthful, but also to do it in a way that doesn't cost me too much. It's a conversation that we've been having in the rehearsal room. How far is too far? At what cost? We have to have a self-care kind of English, Melissa, a way in which to kind of de-roll and decompress after a particularly heavy day, particularly after Act 2, Week 3. But then there needs to be a way in which that you can kind of switch off a little bit. And I think for me, it's, charting where Anna goes and exploring her different layers. And, Anna's she's very witty and very quick, and she's so intelligent that often, in reading the play and the pace in which it goes, often it feels like, I need to be as quick as Anna is. And so it's trying to have the amount of thought changes that she has when she has them in order to keep up. And so it's very, I think you used the word muscular before, it's a very muscular role. And I think that's what's been really fun. Like, I've been exhausted doing it, but it's been really gratifying, is that the word?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, it's gratifying to be able to go to those places and then find a way to go, I'm good now, I'm good. And we have created that safe space in the rehearsal room where we check in every morning, and there have been mornings where I've gone, you know what, I don't need to do C19 today. I'm a little fragile. Not today, but tomorrow, yes. Yeah. I hope that answered your question.
No, it's brilliant. The most difficult thing for me as a caretaker people pleaser is to not want to just wrap these characters up and take them home and sort out their problems. They're so beautifully, finely crafted and delicate at some times, and there's a lot of kind of for Renee especially sometimes can be quite brutal, and that word with consent earlier, she makes a lot of decisions on behalf of her daughter when she's a child that could have major impacts, that do have major impacts on her life. So, I think as Mel was kind of speaking to before, being able to leave work at work, because this is the kind of play that filters into you, well, it has for me anyway. It's a lot more difficult than other ones where you can kind of just do the show and rehearse and then go home and, I don't know, do what you do at home. It kind of stays with you. It changes you, and I think that's one of the great things about playing a great character or being a part of a really amazing play is that it changes you as a person. They're relationships that you have, lovers that you've been with. It becomes a part of you, and that with this one is, different. And Siri agrees. Yeah. Anyway, Siri gets it. I hear you, girl.
No, I think she said, I didn't get that. Would you try again?
Yeah, you can go again if you want.
She gets it. She knows.
I think for me, the most difficult part has become the most enjoyable part, which is for Oliver, you see him at different, there's not random, but very specific jumps of time, and lots of things have happened in their lives between seeing these characters. All of us have to go through that at some point. Various moments of time and events happen off stage. And so the most difficult part when I was looking at it was what on earth is happening? What's happened? Has these relationships developed? What's happened in his life? So it was really hard, but it's become the most enjoyable because all of those questions we've answered as a team. We built this world from the ground up, and we're all alive in that very same space. So the sheer amount of work we've done, creating the lives of our characters, not only during the play but also before the play, was a lot of work, but really enjoyable work, and doing it with each other means that we're all sort of existing in the same space, and we can call back on that at any moment. So that's been really enjoyable, and is a testament to Dan's practice, definitely.
I think the most difficult thing for me is there are some very powerful moments in the play, and I think I like many people, we've had challenges in life, and you can observe something, and when you've seen it a few times, I was starting to feel, I was beautifully moved, but there was a day when I think I said to Dan, can I not watch this scene? Because I think you do have to take care of your mental health when you were dealing with this kind of subject. So yes, that's challenging, but not difficult, but it's about, for me, as an actor who, is an empath, and I need to observe sometimes, not absorb as much, because I think, like many of us, will be like, I'll take all your pain, I'll feel all that, and then you go home and you're rocking. And so, that's been the most difficult thing for me.
And it's interesting in putting a play like this into the company, into a season, is making sure that we take care of the whole company at the same time, because there are people in the building who are around this story a lot and who have contact with it in their lives a lot as well, and making sure that they're okay. Making sure that they don't feel like they have to just push through, and if they need to not go in and see the company run because they're not in a great place today, then that's okay. that it's an interesting story to take into a company for a period of time, and know that there's a reason that we do it. It's for an audience. So it's actually, this is what's really lovely about this particular night, is that we burrow in, to the rehearsal room and upstairs as we talk about it in the public space. The marketing team is deeply invested in how this communicates out before anyone's seen the show, and making sure that everyone's okay doing that. There've been a fair few more treats, chocolates, pastries, that sort of thing. Other plays we don't need to take care of the company so much, but we're doing it for the audience. So this particular night is our reminder that actually, oh, that's right, we do it all for you, and that makes it okay on some reason. There's got to be a purpose for doing it, because it's not always pleasant. But there's a real reason that sits inside the play, because we actually think it will actually help the conversation that we have as people. And it's this lovely moment of reminder. I'm sitting looking at you going, oh, you're going to love it. That's right. That's why we do it. Sorry, there was a hand that moved. There we go. The play is not directly autobiographical, but it is based on her own experience. So she has taken her own experiences and turned it into a fictional story. But yes, she said before in previous interviews about the play that it is based on her personal experience. But Anna is not her, but it's based on experience. So, and that's as far as she's gone. She's very consciously written no diagnosis in the play. And that decision has been backed by the psychiatrists who've been involved in the development as well. That at the age of the person that we're talking about, diagnosis itself would be difficult, if not irresponsible. So yes, she has very close experience of the material, but has been very clear to say this is not her personal story. It's not an autobiography. And it's been interesting. The lovely thing about a second, in this case a third production of a play, is that we've had a lot of responses over the years. Kendall has had a lot of responses from people with different diagnoses, seeing themselves very, very honestly reflected in the play. And that's been interesting too, where the way the play has talked about the story, it's opened it up to a range of different life experiences, to the point where I've had some friends with teenage daughters who said, you know what, they're absolutely not diagnosable in any way, but they're absolutely like Anna. And I found that really interesting again in that question of where behaviour sits. It depends on your perspective, and it depends on extremity in a particular time. So and that's what the challenge that faces both mum and a psychiatrist, in that Anna has changed over the years as well as medication has interacted with her physiology. So we'll probably have some connections to some of the interviews that Kendall has given about the play, where she talks about how what her experience has been to lead her to writing about mental illness. But it's been she's been very clear about making sure there isn't a diagnosis, so that she's not boxing people into certain behaviours.
Was I right in hearing, as you spoke about it, that the challenge was you were confronted with the difference between absolute truth and relative truth, and the consent bit was consenting to other people's relative truth and coping with it. Is that a fair summary of some of the themes?
I think you've absolutely nailed it. Because that's the really, like Dan was kind of making light of it early, the difficulty as a director dealing with four people's absolute truths. And they do not have a shared reality, with a lot of very, very crucial beliefs, values, experiences. And so navigating that is kind of amazing to watch. It's like, I think at one point you spoke about it as an orchestra, like all the different instruments playing their piece. And, you know, maybe you can speak about this, Mike, too, but when it comes together, sometimes it's absolutely terrifying, but sometimes it's magical and beautiful. Yeah, so it's not necessarily, no one's right or wrong, I think, in what we believe in this, and that's what I think is so extraordinary about this play, because I'm on everybody's side and they all have very different opinions. Yeah, so that's, yeah, amazing. I'll see you afterwards for a chat.
Yeah.
Can I ask Oliver a question? You seem to have landed in the middle of a rather fraught relationship between two women.
No.
You have no idea.
Hanging around. How have you coped with that in relation to both as a character and also as an actor?
Yeah, great question. Oliver. As a character, look, like, again, like in what we've all been talking about, like it's love keeps him there and deep care for the people around him. Yeah, so, and as an actor, going through what Ollie's going through, it's hard. Like, I feel like everyone in this play, if you were to ask any of us what it's like going through the show, like, it is at both times the most fun you'll ever have, joyous, you're in the, like, you're experiencing, like, love in its, like, purest form, and then also, like, it can, like, it's devastating. But as an actor, that's a joy, you know, like it really is a joy, and like we've created a space that really is a joy to play with, play within, and the amount of care that each of us are giving each other and each of the characters, and like from the SM team to, you know, all the design, like everyone's just sort of on the same page. So that has made the experience, even coming in and out, being absolutely amazing and made us all feel very involved in the process.
There's also this funny thing that happens in week 4, the play gets really quite intense, but it's also, you have to imagine it all under fluoro lights and in the rehearsal room where it's just little bits of timber hammered together to represent the thing that will be a beautiful set. It's very exposed, and all of the conversations are very deep, and it's got all of the emotional is available, but the bubble's not wrapped around the play yet. Once the play is a whole, it's much easier because there's all this other stuff that has to happen. The play itself, doing of it whole, sort of helps protect the actors. So they've gone through the worst part now. It's true in a funny way. It's when it all comes together, when you get to go into the play and do the play itself and its wholeness keeps you safer than rehearsing. Rehearsing is the most dangerous part in a funny way because you're going through over and over the difficult bits and trying to get towards a truth of them, and that's hard and horrible and sucks everything out of you in that every day for 10 hours a day, plus your commute until something in your life brings you back to outward energy. But now we get to actually take care of them a little bit. We wrap the lights and the sound and the costumes and everything around it, and it becomes not real. And that's the thing where their process allows them to leave it after the final applause in the night, to actually leave it in the theatre. So I promise you it's going to get better. But like you, I've worried about them. What's it like? How are you actually managing to do this? And I'm like, yes, they did sign up for this, but it doesn't mean I don't worry about them. But I do know that at this point it gets better. And if they've made it to here, they'll make it all the way through to the end.
And it's been one of the most joyful jobs I've ever had. So we're saying all like it's all this, but intense. But the joy you will hopefully receive will just makes this job so worthwhile.
Yeah, like joy in making it, and then also the joy of the show. Like, as much as we're like, oh, it's dark, blah, 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 that is a thing that is like really sticks out for me.
Okay, so we have one more question before I get to the most important part of the night, which is the Lucky Door Prize. Yes.
Oh, well, a long time. I mean, the actors enter with 5 weeks to put it together, so it's 5 weeks. But usually, so Simone and I started on this about maybe like a year ago or a bit less. Like 9 months?
Yes, but we were intensively working on it sort of in January, February, but talking about it much earlier.
Yeah. So it's kind of it's quite strange. It's the director and the designer and the creative team all kind of join this caravan of courage moving towards rehearsal, and then rehearsal actors join us, and then we kind of pass the baton to them, and then they move forward into we kind of leave like bye.
Yeah.
Have fun, you guys.
Yeah, so essentially they get 5 weeks to go from a standing start to first preview. And that's with a play that's not in its first production. It's 6 weeks when you're doing a new play. So if it's a new play, you get 1 extra week.
Yeah.
So, they had to do it in 4. I got 5 to do it. It was easy when I did it. Sorry, Dan. Yes. It was... it won the prize in 2015. It was first on stage in 2018. Yes, so it does. It's had a longer life now. This is the third one. No, one in England and one down in Sydney, but in a smaller space. No, she was in England. And then she came back to Australia, and then she was here for the whole of COVID. I think she's just gone back. I think there was a period of time where she was one of the resident artists at a company in London. I've forgotten which it is. Sorry. See, if Dan had been leading this, he'd have written that down.
Prepared. But can I just say, like, pressure, no pressure. Lee Lewis has directed this before. No pressure. And Kendall's family all live in Queensland, so
Yeah, her family all
I'm
coming to see
sleeping
it for
a lot.
the first time. So no, look, it's really beautiful. Like I think in her program note, she actually her family gets to see it finally. As opposed to the writing will take her around the world.
Breathe out.
Writing will take her around the world. She's one of our great growing writers. She's been commissioned all over the place on the back of this play. She's had a couple of other shows that have happened since here. But there's something in this play that plays so beautifully with audience. That's why I couldn't. We kind of had to do it to go on the ride of what her writing is as an Australian. So, okay, I'm gonna wrap this all up with
raffle.
The raffle. The raffle. No, I'm not going to draw it. It's going to be Dan Evans doing.
Oh my gosh! I've always wanted to draw this.
Hang on, there are more to go in. Yes, you get to draw this one. More to go in. Scrunch it all up. Oh, and the prize is a double pass to see Take Me to Paris, which is at the Kingston Butter Factory.
All right.
So
here we go. Who wants to go to Paris? Okay, Brian, we have to do a drum roll.
Okay.
Go. Okay. And, going to Paris is Orange A19.
Oh, there we go.
Bonjour. Bonjour.
Excellent. And the man with the ice bucket will actually organise that. This is David Graham, our head of marketing. Excellent. There we go. Thank you all so much for actually loving theatre as much as I do to come out on this semi-wintry night. It's a beautiful play. It's a great piece of Australian writing. I can't wait to share it with you and to see what you think of not only the writing but the beautiful, beautiful work of this fabulous company of actors who we've loved having in the building. I haven't got to see them a lot because COVID times we try to bubble them away from the company, so they're in the rehearsal room and they're quite separate to the rest of the company, which is sad for us. But we're all looking forward to seeing them as well because some of the laughter I've heard coming through the walls has been quite inspiring in the last couple of weeks. And that also is testament to a beautiful rehearsal room. So we can't wait to share it with you. I'll see you in the foyer to talk about it after you've seen the play because, as I said, this is one where the conversation afterwards is what it's all about. Thank you very much and
thanks, everyone.
See you soon. Okay.
See you there.